Gauntlet Dark Legacy. It's one of those games from my childhood that I got introduced to when I was very young. My dad doesn't remember this, but back when he used to play games, he borrowed a copy of Dark Legacy from a buddy and showed it to me. I had to have been between 4 and 6 at the time, and while I was conceptually interested in scary things, there were a lot of games out there that I was too young to play, and they were too scary. And Dark Legacy zombies in the first world scared the hell out of me to the point that I couldn't play, though I'd have never admitted it back then. Since then, it's been one of those games that I would remember every so often, but never actively sought until last year. Maybe 2 years ago, I emulated the game on GameCube and had some really fun nights with it until fate would have it. About 6 months ago, I found a physical copy, for the PS2 version at a local game store. Side tangent, I love physical copies of any game, especially retro titles, because there's security in the fact that no matter what happens to a company, my game is safe and sound on my shelf and ready to be booted up whenever I please. Since that day, Dark Legacy has been a staple for me to boot up whenever I just want to pass time with a fun, top-down arcadey dungeon crawler, very quickly becoming one of my favorite games to play when I want an excuse to turn on my PS2. The story is incredibly simple. We play as one of a lot of different characters, honestly, take your pick, they're all really cool, who are called upon by the wizard Sumner, voiced by Doug Lawrence, to assist him in saving the Nine Realms from the machinations of the demon Scorn, who was summoned by the wizard Garm. To do this, the player must collect 8 shards to unlock the path to Scorn's temple, then chase Scorn into the underworld and destroy him. To do this, the player must collect 8 shards to unlock the path to Scorn's temple, then chase Scorn to the underworld and destroy him. To do this, we need to collect 12 runestones scattered across the 9 realms to open the gate to the underworld. Once Scorn has been thoroughly destroyed, the wizard Garm absorbs his power and lays siege upon Sumner's tower. To access Garm's area, there's a 13th hidden runestone within his realm that will allow us to kick his fucking teeth in. And there you go, that's the plot, that's the entire goal, and the means of reaching it all in one really short paragraph. But if that's all I wanted to talk about, then I wouldn't bother making a full video. My love for this game has come from beating it at least 4 times since I bought the disc, and with each new playthrough, I discover something that makes me enjoy it even more. It's less about how the game plays and more about how the game feels, as bitchly as that sounds. Each world is unique with its own backdrops, enemies, and bosses that are thematic to the areas in which they reside. The enemies and bosses of each area also look incredible. Now, I know that we live in the modern age. Polygon count has increased infinitely to the point where everything is in 20K resolution and shit. And maybe it's just nostalgia speaking, but I really do think there's something special about low poly graphics that truly allow the imagination to take over. It's like the difference between reading a book and reading a graphic novel. I would choose the book every time. I get to choose what that world looks like, with the description given, of course. I get to choose what those people look like and how they sound. It's the same with retro games. The lower the graphical fidelity, the more my imagination gets to run wild. The simpler the animation, the more I get to imagine what my character is actually doing. The simplicity of an art form can create incredibly complex images and actions. Let's use the turbo spell in Dark Legacy, for example. Each character type has a unique animation attached to their turbo. For the wizard, it's summoning a giant demon skull that shoots forward. For the tigress, it's pulling out 2 massive ballistas and shooting them forward like 2 heavy machine guns. For the sorceress, she summons a ring of skeletons from the ground and launches them forward. The animations themselves are incredibly simple. Using the wizard's turbo, for example, the screen dims slightly, he raises his arms with a few effects flying around him, and then the skull appears and shoots forward. The actual shot is epic in an incredibly simple way because it gives you enough information to get the idea of what's actually going on, but the finer details are what you get to decide through the power of imagination. In my opinion, the simpler the animation, the more imagination you can apply to it. I can make that giant demon skull seem so much more badass in my head than what's actually represented. And through that method of creation, a bond is strengthened between me and whatever I'm playing, reading, what have you. To drive that point home further, here's what I think every time I use the Wizard's Turbo. The sky dims as the light emanating from the wizard drowns out the natural light of the sun. Now, depending on the color that you choose for your character, this could impact the process further. I chose red, so embers of the ancient flame form around his fingertips. The end of his staff glows even brighter as he speaks forth an incantation, summoning assistance from the depths of the underworld. A dangerous practice, considering it was the arrogance of a fellow mage colluding with the denizens of the underworld that brought forth this mess upon us. But he is confident and strong. He believes that he can control the spirit. The wizard opens his eyes. The fires of determination burn into the souls of his foe, and he speaks. "I summon thee, creature from the fires of hell. Come forth and assist your master." And with the final words spoken, the wizard brings the butt of his staff to the ground, opening a small portal from the underworld. From it, a burning skull rises from the depths, scorching the ground around it. With a flourish of his staff, the wizard sends the flaming spirit forth. As it passes through his enemies, they immediately catch fire, burning the flesh from their bones, leaving nothing but a charred skeleton behind. Some nerd shit like that, I love it. You can apply this type of logic to anything, and it automatically improves whatever you're doing tenfold. And it helps if whatever you're doing is already really fun to begin with. Each of the realms is accessible through one of the rooms in the tower, and each of those realms have stages of their own. To access the realms, you have to collect enough crystals of the color that corresponds to that specific realm. There's a natural progression that's made obviously by the majority color of crystals in the current realm you happen to be in. For example, the realm the game means for the player to enter after the Forsaken realm would be the Mountain realm. And to get that point across, the main colored crystal for the Forsaken realm is red. But the path isn't completely set in stone. There are colored crystals that appear in each world that lead beyond what the next realm is meant to be. So it's entirely possible to visit the Forest realm before the Sky realm if you manage to collect enough crystals to access it before those specific colored crystals become common. The same is true for the bosses of each realm as well. In every realm lies one boss item. These items are weaknesses for one specific boss that may or may not be within its own realm. The Lich's weakness would be the Good Book. The Dragon's weakness would be the Ice Axe, etc., etc. As you approach the end of the realm, the game will give you a note hinting towards what that realm's boss weakness is. More often than not, that item will be in a world ahead of where you are at the moment. The game is encouraging you to experiment out of order, and there's really no rush to fight any of the bosses as soon as you unlock them. You'll have to come back in order to beat them eventually, but if one is giving you trouble, try somewhere else for a little while. There's also nothing forcing you to have the boss weakness before entering the arena. If you want to raw dog the Lich before finding the Good Book in the Sky Realm, go for it. He'll be a little harder without it, but if he does happen to be too much trouble, then come back later at either a higher level or with the Good Book. Character levels go up to 99, but it's entirely possible to beat the game before reaching that cap. Each upgrade costs 1,000 gold, and increases that stat by 10 points. I personally like to pick speed before anything else because I want to go fast. Each character also starts with their own base stats that are different from each other. Wizard and sorcerers have higher magic stats, Archer has a high speed stat, Unicorn has a high armor stat. Eventually they'll all round out, but the start of the run usually has a different feel between characters. An additional thing about leveling that I love, in any game really, is when there are sprite differences. Most characters start out basically naked, both men and women. We're equal opportunity sexualizers around here. But as that character levels, their outfits change in very subtle ways, until their entire sprite is completely different from the sprite they started as. Mages tend to gain more robes, and fighters tend to gain more pieces of armor. It's an excellent way to track progress visually. I genuinely love the smallest of sprite changes in any game that has them. Each character also has their own unique idle animations for times when you're just not doing anything for a while. Some fall asleep, some become incredibly impatient. It's fun, it's really charming. I think it's important to mention that Dark Legacy is an expanded version of the original arcade cabinet game titled Gauntlet Legends, which was ported over to PlayStation 1, N64, and Dreamcast. Dark Legacy is essentially the same game ported to Xbox, GameCube, and PlayStation 2, but further expanded from the previous title. There were also version differences between Legends depending on the system it was on, so not all of the same levels were present across all generations. Dark Legacy is the exact same game across all consoles that it's on, and added a bunch of new content to give customers more bang for their buck. Such content included new levels, new characters, a bunch of unlockable characters, and a whole tower redesign. The only major downside I could possibly think of is that this game would be so much more fun with friends. I have plenty of online friends who I bet would be down, but since this is a console game of, 5 generations ago, I don't know of any way outside of a contrived system share over emulation that would get that to happen. The last option would be to have the publisher, who currently owns Gauntlet, which would be Warner Bros., to port it to modern systems and have an online co-op option available, but that's not likely to happen since Gauntlet's been pretty dead since 2014. I would love for IP squatting to not be a thing where a publisher will just hold on to an IP for decades so that nobody else can capitalize on that IP. It's incredibly scummy. I thought that's what Konami was doing with Silent Hill until, the recent slew of Silent Hill games that got announced and released. Hell, they did do that with Silent Hill. They just actually made something later. But I'm getting off topic. If I had to pick a favorite character, it would probably be the Valkyrie. I love every iteration her sprite goes through. I love how quick her turbo spell fires. And probably simplest of all, she was the first character I beat the game as. I have a lot of really fun memories playing as her while experiencing the realms for the first time. If I had to pick a favorite realm, it would probably be the castle realm. I'm a slut for castles, what can I say? But out of everything that I love, I think the thing I love the most is how the game doesn't take itself super seriously. At the end of the day, it's an arcade game. The story is completely utilitarian in nature to give the player something to invest in outside of playing just to play. It's basic, but like everything, that's part of the fun. It allows me as the player to come up with backstories for my characters, to give them reasons to why they may be at the tower working with Sumner. Perhaps it's just to save the realms, or perhaps it's to take over for myself and unleash a new evil upon the realms. It genuinely doesn't matter at the end of the day. It serves its purpose. This was a bit of a shorter video this time because I only wanted to gush about a game that I really, really like, but doesn't really have anything to talk about. I just think it's neat. If you're looking for something old that you've never tried before, Gauntlet, Dark Legacy, or Legends, if you'd like, since they mostly play the same, is a really damn good option to try. My name is Box. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I hope you have a wonderful day.